At age 8, I secretly decided to name myself Fire Fingers to help me understand why, when I had to play piano in front of others, my fingers would feel like fire. Piano was my first form of performance, and piano recitals my first source of stage fright. At the start of a piano recital, I'd be seated, along with the other students, in one of the first 3 rows of the auditorium, separated from my parents. There, I'd wait for my turn to go on stage, play, bow, and then leave. This order of operations may now sound simple, but as a boy, each step was heavy with an exactness that would haunt me. To my left is the person who will go before me, and as they finish playing, I reasoned, is when I'll be poised to get up. Then, when they bow, I will safely put down my program, and then I'll go on stage, play, bow, leave. This sequence became ever more terrifying the more I thought about it, uncovering more and more micro-steps along the way. For example, after go on stage, but before play, there will be bench. Bench I might have to move depending on the previous person's interaction with bench. Also, some of the girls with long hair will have to tuck, usually after bench, but before play. In that I will be spared. But also I realized there was always some sort of right after the hands meet the keys, but before the playing begins. And after bench and or tuck and before, during, and after play, there would be fingers. I'd come to these recitals with my sheet music case in tow, a black bag with a banner of piano keys printed across it. This didn't reflect a real keyboard in size nor length, but it gave my fingers the ability to rehearse my recital song while my mind endlessly reviewed what I'd have to do in a couple moments when it was my turn to go on. I fidgeted through again and again, pausing every couple of minutes to politely applaud for my peers' performance, all of which I had blocked out, while endlessly repeating my own song, my fingers beginning to warm. The performance itself was a space of 3 minutes in which I would burn through my own recital song, eager to get to the other side when I could bow and leave. My piano teacher was a terrifying woman in demeanor, but she was gracious for always assigning me only the fast recital songs with plenty of staccato notes. Thus, my repertoire came to include songs with titles such as Sparks, The Wild West, and of course, Flight of the Bumblebee. Always performed faster yet than how I had rehearsed them. My fire fingers have been the burning bush of my performing life, indicating that a holy and terrifying presence is near. It was the agony of that waiting game while my turn to play was 3 away, 2 away, 1 away that makes me realize now how the sheer idea of performance itself overwhelmed me. I framed it in terms of there being a before and an after, with some ambiguous but horrible passage in between. Perhaps not as scary as the performance itself was the pressure encasing it. I had to get up there. I had this one chance to do what I had spent weeks preparing for, and it all came down to the way each hand moved each one of its fingers. Even when I stopped taking piano lessons and became more interested in musical theater, my fingers followed. On stage, I could look down to see that my fingers had unnoticeably formed this kind of shape you might see in a conch shell, all in the midst of the action. Contortionist fingers, Ripley's Believe It or Not fingers. See? And the tingles, that feeling of when your hand's asleep. You know that if that goes on long enough, your hands start to congeal and literally stiffen like this. At my Shakespeare training, while working through a monologue on Macbeth, my teacher noticed my lobster claw hands and told me with confidence, "Break my arm." What? She held out her forearm. "Break my arm." And as I wrapped my sweaty, tingling fingers around her flesh, I felt the groundedness return as I squeezed as hard as I could. "Why does this happen to me?" I asked, as a child might to his mother. "Well, he does have to kill the king," she said. "It should be pretty nerve-wracking." That was during a time when Shakespeare and theater were solid parts of my life. Now that it's all on hold, there is some relief. It's always meaningful, acting, but when people ask me if I'm having fun up there, the question baffles me. Having fun? For me, doing theater is like putting logs on the fire of my nervous system. It is terrifying, usually always, but at this point it would concern me if it weren't. I see it as a necessary, if difficult, chemical process. And the same fire which builds on opening night is a special thing too, because a performance is the only time when I feel I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. During the summer, I had the opportunity to create a shadow puppet show for kids to be performed over Zoom. This I felt would be a great opportunity. I had wanted for years to do some sort of shadow puppetry using an overhead projector, and I had just acquired one a couple months earlier. I also had plenty of free time to rehearse, and shadow puppetry would be an easier medium to perform virtually. The show would be part of a fundraising effort for a local theater that had been struggling financially, as all theaters have. And finally, having a project with a deadline felt oddly nostalgic, as if I had grown up and was ready to be relied on for something again. By the morning of the show, I had blocked out the light in my bedroom by taping a collage of paper bags over the windows, and had politely asked my outdoorsy housemate to please abstain from his usual Saturday morning woodworking. My laptop sat on top of my desk, the camera focused on the section of my bedroom wall where my shadow projections would be, while I sat underneath the desk and wrapped my legs around this clunky projector, and from there I'd perform. When it was 10:05, I clicked play on the audio track I had recorded. I crawled on my hands and knees around the desk where my laptop sat and crouched at the ready behind my projector, took a deep breath, waiting for my voice to come over the speaker while I grabbed my first puppet. My fingers began to shake. I was once again performing. The bedroom was the stage. I could not get up if I wanted to. I could not go to the bathroom and then wash my hands. I could not read the news. I could not go for a walk and worry if my parents would get sick. I could not go to the supermarket down one-way aisles. I could not go to my chair for telehealth therapy. I could not go on Facebook. I could not go to bed. I had to perform as smoothly as I could after rehearsing for weeks. By that morning, I had abandoned my paper script because I had memorized my hands' actions and the order of operations was clear. I gave my best performance because it was my time to do so.